Hi, everybody, and welcome to this EuropeActive Wednesday webinar, part of the Rethinking for Reopening, Recovery and Renewal webinars that we've been carrying out, and the particular topic of towards a green and more sustainable future. I think despite how difficult COVID has been for everybody across the globe, from living just outside London, and to be able to look up at the sky and actually see stars and take a breath of fresh air and breathe some fresh air, and animals appearing in streets that they didn't before. If nothing else, we did take a step to being greener as a result of this pandemic. And it's important going forward for generations to go that this becomes a crucial part of where we're going. And I'm delighted that this is the subject for today. So just so you're all aware, these webinars are brought together. EuropeActive has got two President's Councils. That's this one, Suppliers, Digital and Tech, and then one for operators. And you have the list of names of people who absolutely make this possible. They're below, and we listen all the time to these council suppliers. EuropeActive's sort of dream of getting more people more active more often needs people to be speaking out and saying where they are going with their organizations and how we can help. And we can't do the work we're doing without the support of these fantastic groups. So those are the people who are in the group so far, and we'll move on to the webinar. I get to hand over to Jennifer, who many of you will know. Jennifer, as well as her own full-time role, seems to have an almost full-time role in helping with things at EuropeActive, if I'm perfectly honest. And she looks after this group and moderates this conversation. So some great speakers. I'm going to hand over to Jennifer, and I'm really looking forward to listening to this.
Thank you, David. I'm not the only one with a dual role on this panel. But I'm happy as the Secretary for the President's Council for Suppliers, Digital and Tech to moderate this session. And I was admiring you as you were introducing us, David. Rethinking for Reopening, Recovery and Renewal is almost a tongue twister. I was pretty sure I was going to stumble over that when I repeated it, but yeah, that's something to warm your mouth up for sure. We have a really interesting session lined up today. We are going to answer two questions that we've posed to both of our panelists, Patty Parrott, who is the Vice President of Customer Experience at Johnson Tech North America and dual role, Senior Director of Global Marketing at Johnson Health Tech. And Catherine, I'm going to tell you, my brain is like a little bit of a sieve today. Severson, am I saying your last name right? Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Catherine is the Environment, Health and Safety Director at Life Fitness. So we are talking with two of the giants on the fitness supplier side today about sustainability. And what we've asked them to prepare answers to are two questions. So number one, what is your green sustainability roadmap for your business? And what are your sustainability KPIs? And I have to admit, I'm a bit green when it comes to sustainability. This is certainly not my area of expertise. So I wanted to maybe start with a little bit of a definition of sustainability, because I thought maybe some of our listeners were in the same boat as me. So sustainability means meeting our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So in addition to natural resources, we need social and economic resources. Sustainability is broader than just environmentalism. So these are very big questions with very broad answers. And with that setup, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to take us through the answers from Life Fitness.
Great. I'm just going to grab my screen here. And can you all see my screen?
You're on.
And it's not a split screen, it's just the single screen, right?
Correct.
Great. Well, I am really excited to be here today and participate in this panel. Life Fitness is definitely on our sustainability journey. We are perhaps a little bit at the beginning of our journey compared to other organizations. We have really spent a lot of time and energy in the last couple of years really putting a lot of nuts and bolts together around sustainability, and including KPIs and all the other great things that one thinks about around sustainability. Just a little bit about me. I have spent my career in manufacturing, along with Life Fitness, have spent time with companies like John Deere and Eaton Corporation. Great background in terms of manufacturing and how things are created and what that looks like to the end customer. I've spent 21 of those years in environmental health and safety field, and I'm really excited to be working in the sustainability area. When you think about environmental sustainability is just one component of that. Definitely encompasses not only the compliance side of things, but the sort of the mindset around what's the environment and what's the earth look like as we're here and present and doing what we do and the equipment that we build and what that looks like. So my perspective with this conversation today is really about influencing and consulting with the operations and the senior leadership of Life Fitness to really think about how we develop and then direct our sustainability path and what those steps along the journey look like. All right. So about 4 years ago, under Brunswick Company, Life Fitness really began defining and deploying sustainability practices in addition to what you traditionally see in a manufacturing operation, which is around compliance and environmental management systems, which is just a part of the cost of doing business, right? So sustainability is kind of above and beyond just doing the right thing. So 2 years later, we became part of KPS portfolio, and projects continued to be conducted through our global operations team. And then last year, amid COVID, we began to really put together a more structured and holistic sustainability process through our corporate social responsibility. And the environmental or sustainability component of CSR became the green team. So we thought it was really important to, think about how we put this whole picture together. So there's lots of moving pieces and lots of nuts and bolts happening across the organization. Things like energy reduction projects and waste management and new packaging ideas and all those different things. And so we needed a way to just grab all that information and put it all together in one place. And that's really what the green team is about. So there's a separate team that really does the operational component around sustainability globally. But the green team is really about how do we then take all this material, put it together and package it so that people can understand what our story looks like and it also helps us to put together that story as well. So, first off, it was about really highlighting new and ongoing green initiatives. So you'll hear later in the conversation about some of the projects that we've been putting together over the last few years around minimizing use of raw materials and then minimizing that end waste that happens when the packaging comes off of your product at the customer site. So we think about, what sort of initiatives are happening and how do we tell that story? Again, putting all these different projects and ideas and things that have been happening across the globe into one place so that not only internally, but externally, we can really share what our story looks like and what that journey is is like now, and what we hope the journey looks like in the future. And then, to really make that all happen and put the glue in place, it's really about, with our employees, how they understand the process, how they can speak to it, how they can become involved in it. We have started to do quarterly events with our employee group to really think about, how do we help them to understand the whole sustainability mindset? What does that look like? How can I impact it? You think about your employee group, and depending upon where they are in the organization, they can have an amazing impact on sustainability. If I'm in the supply chain and I'm ordering raw materials or goods or packaging, or I'm out and I'm getting ready to package up a piece of equipment to go on a truck. So I can, the ideas that I come up with can really impact how much waste is generated or how much product is put together. So having people engaged and understanding what sustainability looks like, we feel like is really important. And then, ultimately, as we collect all this information into one place, more and more our customers are asking, during surveys annually, during bids and tenures, they're asking, so what do you look like? It's become a lot bigger part of the conversation, a bigger part of who your end customer and your suppliers want you to be. So it's really become more important. I honestly have not seen a survey since the beginning of the year that has not involved some component of sustainability. So it's definitely important, but it also helps us to, as we have, moved further and further into our sustainability journey, it really has helped us to put together, our whole story, because there's a lot of really great things happening, and we just have not really taken advantage of all the things that are happening across the organization. So it's really an exciting time for us. So this is more of what I would call kind of the nuts and bolts side of the organization around sustainability. So this is from our Vice President of Quality. This is our code of compliance that we utilize as part of it anyway, around what our customers are expecting, what our suppliers are expecting. So it's really about, how do you operate? Are you operating under ISO? Are you operating under all these different, do you have a good environmental management system? So they're looking for, how are the nuts and bolts of sustainability really in place? So, you can make it look really good, and you can make the materials look really great, but they're really wanting to know what do the nuts and bolts look like? And so, as you can see, it's about being committed to providing products and experiences in a manner that minimizes our impact. And so it's like, okay, so how do we do that? And, these seem a little bit formal in terms of guidelines, but when you break it down a little bit, you think about following the rules. So there's a whole lot of rules depending upon where you're manufacturing and how you're doing that. There's a whole lot of compliance and requirements, not only from an operational perspective, but also products, things like, what's in your paint, and where does the metal come from, and what does that look like? And so, the end product and how it's made, even down to the simple makeup of the grips that go on the equipment. So all those things are really important. And so we have to make sure that we understand all the rules, and we follow all those rules around how we operate and what our end product is made of and what that looks like. Then you think about, products and packaging, and how we can minimize that even to end of life of our products for our customers and our clubs and activities that need to get rid of that equipment. They need to repurpose it at the end. So we think about how that looks, and how you'll hear about some packaging projects that we've worked on in the last few years to minimize not only the use of raw materials as you're putting the packaging together, but then at the other end, you think about, okay, so let's say we're at a fitness center as an example, and we're delivering 50 pieces of equipment. And you think about, okay, so if each piece of equipment has 2 or 3 boxes that it comes in, and then you're taking all that material out And now you've got to figure out, you're going to sort it into different containers so that you can try to recycle it and repurpose it, versus some of our new packaging is a one box package, as an example. So they have one single box that they have to manage from beginning to end, use less raw materials up front. So then we also think about, how do we minimize our environmental footprint? And this is more really focused to our operational group. So how do we minimize the waters that we use in the production? How do we minimize the waste that we're generating? As an example, we have a project going on in our Hungarian factory right now, where they are adjusting how they laser or cut out parts as to minimize scrap. So the win-win for that is that we're also using less raw materials because we're cutting more efficiently. So we're getting more pieces out of a sheet of material, and then we generate less waste. So those are all ways in which we have to think about holistically our whole business and what that looks like. And then we think about, so for this to really work, we need to make sure that our employees have the right knowledge and the right tools to be able to operate in that manner. So as an example, if we have some rules around storing things outside at a factory, and we have a stormwater requirement, if employees don't know what that looks like and what we can and can't do outside, they might accidentally break a rule and put something outside that shouldn't be if we don't educate them and really make sure that they understand what the right thing is to do. And then, ultimately we try to do all of this work through really a lean manufacturing lens. So we think about how to continually improve. And that's really what the sustainability journey is about for us, is how do we continue to get a little bit better, have a little less impact, and really continue to think about the big broader picture in terms of our impact and how we can minimize that. So I brought a few projects and a few metrics that I wanted to share. You've heard me say a couple times about one box packaging. So in the last couple of years, especially in some of our product lines, we have moved to a one box packaging. And you think, well, it doesn't really seem like has much impact. As we put these projects together, so you look at how much raw material you need, how much packaging you're going to need, you create a business case on why would we want to do this? Why would we care? And so in these particular projects, at the end of the day, when we deployed this new project, we were able to reduce both our raw materials and our waste generated at the end by 40%. So you think about, 50 pieces of equipment being delivered to a customer site, and then you're unpackaging all that material, and then you're trying to figure out how you're going to get rid of it in a sustainable way. So you're going to be sorting it into cardboard and shrink wrap and wood and all those different commodities. And so we were able to, through this process, minimize that waste material by 40%. And so that's a huge win for us. It also, has some great effects that you don't think about from a sustainability perspective, but it increases our ability to manage our quality control. So the piece of equipment is more packaged to minimize damage in shipment. And so you think about the other things that come along with these kinds of projects that filter into many pieces of the business. And then you think about, so from an operation perspective, tracking energy and water. Again, this is something that we're a little bit newer at. And so we're really excited that we are definitely moving on this journey. So you can see metrics associated with use of energy, water, and generation of waste. And so all of our factories across the globe this year, so this is this year's annual operating plan related to environmental, are tracking all of their energy and water use and their waste generation. Then all of the sites will be doing assessments both on water and energy usage and queuing up projects for 2021, which will minimize our use both with water and energy. Some of our factories are already several years ahead of the rest of the pack and have already started doing projects like new lighting or redoing their heating and air conditioning systems or their compressor systems. So there's a lot of projects that have already been in place. But what we're doing is we're aligning all of the factories to be doing these projects no matter where they are across the globe. So some areas such as in Hungary, they're required to do some of these projects because of the local regulations. The US is not quite there in terms of some of those things. So it's left more to the organization and the company to put those projects together, even though we don't have to at this point. So really excited that all the teams were meeting quarterly and we're, really moving these projects forward. It's really exciting to see that people are starting to kind of get this idea and really thinking about, well, what could we do differently? Even simple things like installing equipment in the restrooms that minimize the water usage and the waste generation. All those little things that add up into a bigger picture. And then we think about packaging, and for all of us in manufacturing, packaging is really critical. And so we always think about, the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So first and foremost, so how can we minimize how much raw material we start with? So the 1 and 2 box packaging are examples of what that looks like. And so first off, you try to see, okay, let's minimize the amount of material. We don't want to create a quality escape or product damage in shipment and when it gets to the customer, but how can we reduce that material? And then how can we reuse it? So is there, we have projects where we are bringing pallets back in and reusing them. And we've got wraps that we use on some of our equipment and they're being recycled and brought back in for a second or third use. We've got a factory in Oklahoma that the material comes in and they take it out of the box. It's a matched serial number to the box and the piece of equipment. They finish the assembly, put it back in the same matched serial numbered box with some additional materials from the assembly, and it goes back out in the same box that it came in. So there's another example where, we're reusing those materials versus throwing them away and then putting them in a new package. And then at the end of the day, if you can't reduce and you can't reuse, then you have to think creatively, okay, how can we recycle? And we're doing all sorts of, kind of crazy, but hopefully engaging opportunities for employees. So things like what we refer to as walk the tarp. So you collect all the material that's being thrown away in a department and you dump it out on a tarp and you let people look at what are we throwing away and how can we take that particular piece of material and recycle it in a different way rather than it just going out. So you have to, get people involved in the concepts to really have an impact. There's only so much you can push from a group or a green team without really getting people engaged. So really excited related to our sustainability journey. And then with that, I'd like to just share a quick clip of what our new 1 box packaging looks like for our treadmill. And that's the Life Fitness sustainability journey.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was really, really cool to see and really inspiring to hear how sustainability is progressively like almost juggernauting itself through life fitness. I think that's I hear a whole lot of innovation, a whole lot of departmental synergy that's happening. And I loved the walk the tarp example. That's so cool that you're challenging yourself even in every office. I think that's it's just very creative. Because this is the first time I'm hearing this story about life fitness, and it's a wonderful story, I'm wondering how often do you communicate your outcomes or updates? Like how can people find out more about what life fitness is doing up to the minute in terms of sustainability?
So that's really what we're working on with the green team, is putting this material together. This is, this presentation today is just an example of what we're putting together. And, I'm hoping within the next probably 90 days that we'll be able to have some outward facing communications. We see a lot of this material, like the video you just saw has been on Facebook and LinkedIn and all sorts of, social medias that I probably don't even know the name of. So, we're telling a lot of the story in terms of social media outlet. Probably our biggest opportunity is to get that on our website as well. So I think that the information is definitely it's part of kind of creating that whole life fitness storyline and making it available for people to see. As an example, this presentation today is going into our corporate deck going forward. So all exciting things, just moving at an amazingly fast pace. It's really great.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is what I enjoy most about the webinar series, is having the opportunity to hear stories like yours and about the story that we're about to hear from Patty, because I think these are the things that are going to inspire other companies and more of our sector to step up and take action. So thank you for soldiering on in this area. It's been fantastic to hear what you've prepared for us.
Thank you.
Patty, on to you. Tell us.
All right. Are you seeing my screen now?
I am.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Catherine, for sharing what Life Fitness is doing. And thank you to the EuropeActive team for having us here. And, just bringing this really important topic, I think, to the forefront. Like Catherine said, for Life Fitness, this is a relatively newish journey for us as well. I think we really at Johnson Health Tech and Matrix started talking about sustainability probably 10 or 15 years ago. But we realized very quickly that our industry at that time was really falling victim to this whole greenwashing marketing phenomenon, where the individuals or brands were really talking about sustainability without actually contributing to a better world. And we did know that we wanted to not fall into that trap, but we also knew that we weren't really sure how to get started or how we could be truly responsible when it did come to a sustainability program. And so at that time, about somewhere between 10 and 12 years ago, we partnered with an expert. She was a graduate from the University of Wisconsin's Sustainable Management program, and she helped us really create this framework that we could use for our sustainability work. And okay. And so back at that time, we created what we internally call our three-legged stool when it comes to corporate responsibility and sustainability. And it's helped us focus our attention in three different areas or pillars of sustainability. Those are our people, our planet, and our practices. And really just to kind of understand why we look at it this way. The idea behind focusing on our people ties into this whole social responsibility idea, that we ensure that we're championing the rights of our team members, regardless of their role within the company or the continent on which they live or work. Our efforts here include everything from diversity to inclusion, initiatives, educational scholarships so people can further themselves and their families, and then supporting charitable efforts across all of our different subsidiaries. There's a quote that I like that's floating around that talks about sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. And I think that really applies to that people side and how we treat the people throughout our entire supply chain. And then again, how sustainable it makes the communities in which we serve. And of course, when it also comes to that people part, I think our industry is perfectly poised for that because it's about helping our employees make health and wellness a priority in their lives. Our second pillar that we focus our initiatives around is the planet. And this one is probably the easiest to conjure up ideas about. And we have a lot of initiatives that fall into this area, many which mirror the things that Catherine was speaking about. Some of the obvious things like tracking our footprint across our manufacturing and distribution network, and putting projects into place that are driving down packaging, as Catherine mentioned, and big things like minimizing the chemicals of high concern that we use in our manufacturing process, make sure that we have an EMS system in place and that we're disposing of any chemicals properly. And finally, our practices. And this pillar is about responsible sourcing, responsible distribution, and then end of life for all of our products. One thing, we have now since engaged in projects that have reduced and removed styrofoam from our packaging altogether. But one of the coolest examples we have, our North American headquarters is located just outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And one of the nation's largest picture frame manufacturers that supply Walmart is just 30 minutes from here. And for years, when we used styrofoam in our packaging, we basically had a zero waste practice where we were able to provide all of our leftover or packaged styrofoam to that organization, which then recycled it into their picture frames. So as I said, we've moved past that now as we're eliminating styrofoam altogether, but lots of cool examples like that. Other practices, as Catherine talked about, reusing. We've recently created a reverse logistics program when it comes to our pallets. I think Catherine mentioned the same thing at Life, where we're able to bring pallets back and use them 3 or more times. Again, really keeping those out of the waste stream altogether. So while we still talk about our sustainability using this 3-pronged framework that we developed about 12 or so years ago, we've taken this a step further, and we've partnered with a third-party assessment company to complete an unbiased assessment. I think this is really important for us because, again, it's really helped give us focus. And so we started out with this third-party assessment with one of our hospitality partners, but it's really provided us with some key benefits that goes well beyond the singular customer that we started with. It's a somewhat rigorous process, but it helps us assess the overall environmental impact of our products throughout their entire life cycle. The assessment helps us simplify the confusion that exists around the various eco-labels that are floating out there. And perhaps most importantly, it really helps us hone in on those areas that will have the greatest ability to influence change. And that's what we've really used to help set the roadmap in terms of the projects that we want to focus on going forward. And so this graphic that I'm sharing is actually a graphic that is from this third-party provider, MindClick, but it talks about the 9 different areas that we grade ourselves on and where we're able to identify very targeted improvement projects to help us improve. And the great thing about this project as well is that it's never, as we've talked about, it's never done. Sustainability is always a continuous improvement project. So in many of these cases, it's not only what improvements have you made now, but what improvements have you made from the last time you took the assessment. And if you can't show significant improvement and change over the last 12 months, you're not going to get full points. And I love that because it really keeps us on that journey to continuously improve. And so again, you can see here, it's in terms of material consideration. Sometimes this can be tricky when we're talking about fitness equipment, when we're dealing with steel and plastic, but it's even consideration in terms of when we're talking about packaging, not only engineering solutions that use less material, but what material are we using when it comes to cardboard? Is it pre-consumer, post-consumer, recycled? And you get a different level of points for all of that. So those were things that before we started working with this partner, we didn't talk a lot about. And so I think it just brings awareness across our organization for things like that. Obviously, all things related to manufacturing is our environmental management system, making sure that we have all of the necessary human rights processes, policies in place, and that employees at every one of our facilities know how they can express any concern that they have. So while we've always been very proud of our employment base and the people that we have, making sure that we have those processes in place for them to share feedback with management, our distribution chains, how we bring things into various ports. In the US, for example, we have 5 ports of entry that we use, so we're really able to minimize how much we have to move equipment across the country. And then not only how the product operates in the facility, but then its end-of-life solutions as well. So I'm gonna share with you actually our 2020 scorecard, because when we talk about the KPIs, we really look at this as our opportunity. And so obviously our sustainability journey is never, never over. I've already hit on the challenge that we can sometimes face when it comes to raw materials. But when we look at our other areas, so example, what does our roadmap look like for 2021? It's really focusing on those 3 bars in the middle that aren't at maximum points. In the environmental, we score very, very well when we look across our organization when it comes to our environmental management. But our opportunity there is for us to further develop the documentation, the scorecards that are needed when it comes to capturing our footprint and targeting in on those reduction goals. So it's not enough for us to have singular projects in place. For example, just in the process of completing a major transition to solar at some of our manufacturing facilities, but we need to define specifically how those are going to make that difference and what our goal is year over year. On the social side, again, we have the right policies in place when it comes from everything to discrimination, to human trafficking, to right to assemble, which are all things that are taken into account on this scorecard. But now we're working with both internal and third-party organizations to make sure that we have a formal audit process in place. Again, it's not only about us holding ourselves accountable, but always having that outside influence to make sure that the rest of the world sees it as we see it, so that we are not simply greenwashing that communication. And then on packaging, as I mentioned, to receive maximum points in this category, we are working on R&D projects at all of our facilities. This process that we go through does have an individual scorecard for every one of our manufacturing facilities. So we have to have R&D projects going on at those. So not only minimizing, as I mentioned with that packaging example, minimizing the amount of packaging we use, eliminating non-recyclable packaging material, but also making sure that we're really being conscientious about the type of material that we're choosing when it comes to cardboard. So this really is a continuous improvement journey for us as well. It will always be a work in progress because there will always be an opportunity for us to make this better. And I think we have a lot of control of our future here. You know, at Matrix and Johnson Health Tech, we're very vertically integrated. We can and do control every step of our manufacturing footprint. And so it's our obligation as leaders in this industry to invest time and resources into creating a more sustainable future. And I like to use a lot of quotes because I think they're powerful, but another one that I really like is the greatest threat to our planet is that we believe someone else will save it. And it's really time for us to be that someone else and put that empowerment in the hands of our employees so that we can create a more sustainable future for ourselves, our families, our customers, and really the societies that we operate in.
Thank you so much, Patty. I took so many, like I've been making notes through both of your presentations, but there were so many takeaways for me through the whole presentation. Like the point that you made about the sustainability is not about doing less harm, but more good. That's just a completely different mindset when you approach things. That I think more of us need to shift into. It's really been a pleasure to see all of the work and all of the thought that that Johnson Health and Matrix has put into their sustainability plans. And I love that you're already working with a third party to review and give you feedback on. I mean, we can't grade ourselves, right? Like that's a little bit too biased going into it. So it's really great to see that you're already there. I have a couple questions for you. First is your scorecard, which was really amazing to see. Is this something that you review on an annual basis, or is it more okay?
Yeah, so the project that we go through with MindClick is an annual project. So we do that once per year. We analyze all of our manufacturing facilities. I do, to answer your other question, we do put out, this is not a great copy, but an annual corporate responsibility report as part of Johnson Health Tech. So it represents all of our brands. And we do publish that annually following our assessment with MindClick. And so in that report, we address not only some of our findings from that scorecard, but also addresses a lot of the projects that our subsidiary offices that aren't as intimately tied to the manufacturing organization are doing around the world. With 34-ish wholly owned subsidiaries around the world, we have a lot of offices. And so how are they doing their part to be sustainable as well? How are they investing in the communities that they operate? How are they minimizing their footprint? And what are they doing, for a more sustainable future?
Yeah, that was definitely my next question. How are you communicating this? So that's good to see. I feel like hoping when people are watching this, they can think about their business and their impact in a different way, and that everybody has the power to make an impact. And there's we have our own responsibility to use our voice within the companies that we work in to help make steps in this area. So but on kind of just to play, there has to be a way where we can, in a bigger way, because when you publish a corporate report, I don't know if we ever measure the reach of those things, and if the story ever gets in the hands of one step at a time, right? Sustainability warrior step at a time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Jennifer. I think, that's the thing when we think about the bigness of sustainability, that makes it a little bit scary. But I think, again, once you start really looking at all these different areas that sustainability can and should influence, you realize that, hey, perhaps we are, and this was what the experience that we had at Johnson Health Tech. So we realized, actually we're doing a lot of the right things. But partnering with the third party and creating our corporate responsibility report was about owning it, right? When you put it in writing, when you have that metric out for the world to see, you're owning it. You're realizing you're doing a lot of the right things, but with small tweaks, they can be better. And that's part of that message about sustainability is everyone can influence it. Yes, it is about the big manufacturing organization, but it's also about the little changes that we can make that add up as well. And if you take the power of an organization with 8,000 people in it and give everyone that power, it can be a real meaningful difference.
And we use a similar type of tool. So we use Clicked as well on an annual basis. And we also have what we refer to as our Sustainability Index Survey. And it covers all 10 categories of sustainability, including, areas of how you treat your people and what your labor practices look like. And so we have been doing that annually as we have become part of KPS 2 years ago. And that has been really what has then driven us in terms of our KPIs and where we want to work. Our areas where we needed to have the more impact was in energy, water, and waste. And so that's how the target KPIs were put together for 2021. But again, to your point, you need a lens that you're looking at it from a different angle, because we get pretty biased when we're looking at it from an internal perspective. And so you need another tool to be able to look at it in order to move to the next part of the journey.
Totally agreed. And, when you start working with third-party providers who do this work for other sectors, they can also create a lot of tips and steering to help you see things in a way, or see opportunity you didn't see before, because they get to peek in so many different kitchens, so to speak, and have a broad exposure to different solutions. So, well, I've really enjoyed seeing both of your presentations. I'm fully inspired, and thank you for being so open and giving your time and preparing these presentations to share with the sector what you're doing in this area. I'm going to turn it back over to David to wrap us up, but he's gone for me. He's a big black box.
Well, hopefully I can see me, so hopefully others can see. Well, maybe you don't want to see me, but any which way, there's the comment. Look, what's there to say? I'm really inspired. If I was to put another hat on, I was born and brought up in Kenya, and I sit as chairman of a zoo in the UK and a conservation organisation, which comes out of the back of that. That was my background, was conservation. And I sit on endless environmental panels with some of the greatest thinkers, particularly in the world of conservation in natural history and things like that. And I'm really inspired, excited. I've made loads of notes, and I can tell you the next meeting I chair with these guys, I'm going to be saying, Life Fitness are doing this, and Matrix are doing this, and ultimately our industry are doing this, because it really is the way the way we need to go. So whether I put my president of EuropeActive, I'm proud of the industry. I'm proud of what you guys are doing. If I put my conservation hat on, I'm proud of what you're doing, and you and your team and the people around you should be. So for me, it's just two things. Firstly, I think the next webinars will be towards the end of the summer, probably September, and then we have FIBO, which hopefully people will be signing up and coming to. So if you're watching this, please make sure to sign up. I know Matrix and Life Fitness will be there, so we'll see you there. But really, it's a huge thank you to Patty and Catherine for the fantastic input, and once again to Jennifer, who really takes the time and drives this forward. So on behalf of all of EuropeActive and its members, thank you very much. It really was an absolute delight. Thank you.